And action. Welcome, Tids. Thanks for coming on, man.
G'day.
I'm going to just open up with a bit of a selfish one and just sort of praise my love for Violent Soho and like how you guys affected my earlier years. And it's actually an honour to sit here and ask you some questions and you're going to answer them, which is mint.
Oh, dude. Well, thanks for having me. It's my honor. I'm a massive fan of divers, as you know, and that's rad to hear that we positively affected your life in some way.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for that. So, first one would be just the basic soul within Violent Soho, like the energy that's in it. I was wondering how you guys landed on that. Was it just used as sort of like crafting it, or? That was so annoying. I had a bit of an opening monologue and it just got ripped from under us.
I think the question that you asked, the last thing that I heard anyway, was like the underlying...
The soul of Violent Soho, yeah. Like just like the general vibe within Violent Soho and how it came to be Violent Soho. Like the sound.
That's huge. I think the soul of the band comes from the four individuals, I guess, and what we wanted to.
Yeah.
Well,
were there like inspirations that you guys had that you wanted it to be like that, but it ended up taking a left turn or something happened along the way to push you into
absolutely. I think the beginning of our career, we were very much lumped into like this 90s grunge thing. I think that we still are. I don't know. We grew up on all sorts of music, and probably the least amount was probably the 90s grunge thing. Obviously, we love Nirvana as much as sort of anyone does. But to us, they were almost like a myth. They didn't exist in my lifetime. I grew up with the Foo Fighters, not Nirvana. Kurt Cobain was as gone as Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison. To us, they didn't even seem real. And it was kind of like hard to hear, oh, you guys are just being like Nirvana and stuff, because it's probably the last band you'd want to try and be like, because, they're just like untouchable. You're not gonna, you can't do that, So, but also like what they created was stuff, or not what they created, but what it turned into was like the polar opposite of what we were doing, or what we at least thought we were doing. Because to us, Nirvana were almost responsible for, and Pearl Jam, I guess, and that whole 90s thing became responsible for Nickelback and, Bush and a whole bunch of stuff that we certainly...
Violent Soho, Nickelback, I can see it.
Yeah, exactly. So to us, being called grunge was like being like Nickelback. We were like, well, we're not grunge. Like, we grew up on, Blink-182, Radiohead, for sure, Smashing Pumpkins. And I think like that's almost a three-band, off the top of my head, great cross of like what we sort of probably sound like is, Blink, Pumpkins, and a little bit of Radiohead in there. We try.
I agree, man. On the self-titled, I reckon you guys are like, there's a lot of Smashing Pumpkins sounds in it, but then it's sort of moved, like Hungry Ghost feels like you kind of like, if you've got your own thing going on at that point, and you got like sounds that are unique to Violent Soho, like especially like a lot of the Hungry Ghost stuff for me, I was like, fucking, I thought I hadn't heard it. Like I'd heard the style, but I hadn't heard those particular songs in that way before.
Awesome.
And it was like felt unique.
That's awesome. I think we're just like every other band. What we thought we were doing is unique because we're in it, and then everyone else outside of it can hear the influences. And we wholeheartedly wore our influences on our sleeves because that's what we listened to. Like, I mean, of course, that's what's going to come out. The second album, like, I ever owned was Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I bought that when I was 11 years old. And so that stuff's going to come out. You know, I was a massive Silverchair fan, my first favorite band. And then I think when it comes to like Hungry Ghost, even the title song's a great example, which is the last song on the record. You probably can start to hear a little bit more of that Radiohead influence, or you know. But I think at that stage, we had gone through so much for a band, and we never had the same ambition as bands from, I guess, bigger cities. That's when we started being like, well, we're from Mansfield, so it doesn't matter.
Is this just before Hungry Ghost?
Yeah. So it became very evident to us that we're not a music industry band, as in like they're not going to champion us. We got terrible reviews, and that was fine to us because we just love music. You know, we're fans of music. We ain't even trying to impress the industry. We're just trying to, you know, I guess, express ourselves and be who we are. And it became very empowering. And that's why when you asked what's the soul of the band, it was to truly be yourself and to accept yourself for who you are. We had to accept ourselves that we were suburban, you know, kids with major influences by unfashionable acts now, you know. And we embraced it. You know, it was like, well, fuck you. You're the one pretending. Like, we're not. So that filled us with like a power and a sense, I guess, of belief of what we were doing, which was unashamedly being ourselves. Long hair when it was out of fashion, you know, Broncos, into the Broncos, out of fashion, you know, liking Blink-182. I mean, you know, you wouldn't dare say that when we were growing up. So, you know, that's just how it was, you know, and
it's funny because like the trends are sort of like they're just behind. It's like when that era was probably around, those bands had just gone out of date, so they're out of date. But then they come around, like it swings back around again, and then
it does. And if you just as a music fan, I've always said everything is on a 7-year cycle, right? And the ultimate bands are the ones that last the 21-year, 7-year cycle. And how that works is you list any single band, the best ones spend, you know, generally 7 years getting there, because they're at the forefront of it, because they're unfashionable for 7 years, right? Then they live 7 years in the massive peak of breaking through what's popular, and then they live 7 years of that. Then the following 7 years, they are the most unfashionable band. I mean, it may not start on year 8, year 9, but, you know, year 5 or 6 into that third 7-year cycle, they're the most unfashionable band. And you can go through any band with this. It does change slightly when you start to look at genres, okay? So, for example, I don't think, like, let's say Green Day, right? Like, as a huge one, or, I mean, but you can do this with any band. Smashing Pumpkins, Korn, Oasis, literally any Metallica, all right? Metallica's the best one, all right? 7 years creating their own genre, essentially. And then they live 7 years from Black Album through Load. Now, I'm not saying that means that that's their best albums, but maybe it started with Injustice for All, right? 89. Then we got 91, we got Black Album. Then we got like 94 or 95 and 97 of Fuel. And then it was over. Oh, not Fuel. It was called Reload. And then, so that, exactly. So then it's on the decline. But if you can last that decline, you're around forever. It's really...
You got to have strong as music at the start, though, for that, I reckon, because if it sticks around, it's going to become like Triple M. If you're like, you know, they're just going to keep cycling your music. And if you're in that category of music of just like instant classics, like you're probably going to have a second
Definitely. Chance. But all those bands that have had instant classics are normally around for 7 years before. And if they're not around 7 years before, they might have been around 3 or 4 years before, but they're part of a genre that started 7 years. So you don't have to be the pioneer of it necessarily. If you're the pioneer, chances are you did your first 7 years when no one cared about you, no one knew. And then your next 7 years, you get to live in the peak of it all and enjoy it, which is when every band thinks that they're awesome forever and it's always going to be this way, and then they welcome them to the back half of their twilight part of their career. But if you get through all that, you know, like you know, any number of bands, you get to be around forever. I mean, just look at Avril Lavigne, right? So I'm not saying that any of her music's good necessarily, or any of her time frame is good, but she's outlived it to the point now where she's releasing like some of the biggest music of her life with, you know, Machine Gun Kelly and Travis Barker, two people I can't stand. But the fact is like she's still around doing it because she just outlasted.
Yeah, she's kept.
And again, she came in at the end of the scene being built, right? So pop punk happened. And it got really big. Let's say it started with Green Day in 1994 with Dookie. Well, the 7 years leading up to Dookie, that band was around. You know, they had multiple members. They played tons of shows. In fact, they had a gold record with Kaplunk, right? That's independent. Then Dookie happens. Let's say that's the end of Nirvana's time frame, technically, or that style of the scene. Doesn't mean that grunge isn't still going, because now we got Bush, we got Nickelback. The constant overflow of that is always going to exist. But now we have a new genre that's just kicked into the mainstream in 1994. Now we got Green Day, we got Offspring. That leads into Blink-182. After Blink-182, forget about it. Everything was punk rock. We had like Kelly Clarkson, bloody Lee Harding from Australian Idol was like wearing a Misfits shirt. So again, it hits the mainstream. Then Avril comes out right at the end of that, rides that last, you know, bit of it with 2 records, nothing. And then all this time later, she just wasn't there for releasing the shit part during the shit part. I mean, to me, it doesn't really make much of a difference for her anyway. But now look at her. She's around and relevant again. She's the same age as me. Like, imagine being like 40 years old and getting around with Machine Gun Kelly, like, acting like you're 17. Sure. I guess. I'm trying to explain it. Sweet hoodie, by the way.
Thanks, man. This is a brand.
Pick it up, Metro.
Online. Do you reckon that has something to do with like when you're young and you're going through puberty, you get like those, like everything that you hear, everything's brand new and you love it, or you love all these different kinds of music and they're like the most impactful at the time. But then as you sort of get older, you sort of like stop having those like childhood like reflective memories attached to music. And then once those artists, they get a bit older, it's like they come back around again in an ironic way. And they sort of say like, oh, remember me? I was like your favorite artist when you were 16 or something like that. And then it's like, oh yeah, there's like 50 fucking people in the same age group going like, I remember that girl. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, well, she's coming out with a new album. And then she comes out with a new album and they listen to it. But it's like the new generation sort of jump on board as well. And it's sort of like this cycle of like, you know, repeating it, like going back to your childhood.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it is. Whether like what happens is when you're a teenager or like when you're discovering yourself, I guess, and you're looking for your own identity, you know, you really want your own music and you want something that no one else has had before because music's so powerful in that way, right? So you want something really individual. And then generally the most people's, their favorite music from a particular artist, is the first album they heard. And if it's not, it's generally the second most favorite, because you only get one chance at a first impression. And the best bands are the ones, like you said before, that release nothing but quality music every single time. So it doesn't matter when they come out. It's so good that that's what people like, you know, as in like it's likable. I hope that makes sense.
It pushes, it's timeless. That's like what a timeless song is, I reckon. Something that just like, no matter what, it's almost not even lumped into a genre. It's just, it's its own thing. Yeah. Like, I reckon a lot of radio songs like that. There's just like a lot of unique, especially like after Kid A. I don't know if that even fits the same template as what you were saying. Did they lose popularity after Kid A, or because like I feel like they've always been
like, I think that's the one band you can't include.
That's the exception. Yeah.
They are like I don't care what people say. They are our generation's Beatles, and what I mean by that is like you know, no matter what, our kids will eventually be like, oh, you know, Radiohead will be cool, right, in years to come because it's just on a level that it is. Yeah.
They're always good. I haven't listened to that new. They've got this like new one out called The Smile. I think Tom York's one. I haven't listened to it yet, but I've just seen people geeking out about it. It's like in one of the top streamed things of like all the indie music. It's been released at the moment. There's like 3 songs in there, but I fucking really am a sucker for like mainly Radiohead. But if it's anything like that, I hope he just goes like, oh yeah, it didn't work. Back to Radiohead, and we get a new album. And it's just like,
they are. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the last one I gave significant time was Hail to the Thief. I don't know if they've had multiple. Oh, they have. They've in Rainbows, which was great. Yeah.
They've had shit. Yeah. The recent one, Moonshaped Pool. That's like I love that. Like if you get that with headphones on, it's just so beautifully mixed. Like all the sounds that they include in it, it's just like one of those ones where
I've got it on vinyl. I got it as soon as it came out. I don't know if I've listened to it 3 times. So maybe that's what I need to do. But like Kid A won me over in Radiohead world. I think I was like 17 when that album came out, but I didn't really get into it at the time. It was my band that was really big into Radiohead. But the most Radiohead played song I play at the moment is Anybody Can Play Guitar. Do you know that one? So Pablo Honey, which apparently is like their worst. I've never really given that much of a go either. But I was 9 years old when I decided I'm going to play in a band, and one of those songs that was on Rage was Creep by Radiohead, and I loved it. I never really listened to it again. I missed the whole Benz thing. Yeah. Now I love it. But I was 9, I wasn't really sure what was coming out or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, not ready for it.
But when I heard Kid A, to me, because I was already a huge DJ Shadow fan. Like, I grew up skateboarding, so, 90s hip-hop, especially instrumental, it was all the rage. So I grew up with early DJ Shadow, Introducing, and Preemptive Strike. And so when I heard Kid A, that really made a lot more, sense to me.
That one blew my mind. I heard that later. I remember hearing it, like one of my mates put it on in a garage when we were playing pool, and I heard Idiotech for the first time. And I thought I'd listened to a lot of Radiohead stuff, but I'd only really pigeonholed myself into like In Rainbows and the one with the King of Limbs on it. What's that one?
Amnesiac or no?
Oh, the King of Limbs.
I don't know any song names of anything.
No, I don't know. It's their album one. It's like anyway. I remember deep diving that. I was like, what the fuck is that? And then
I know the cover.
My mate was like,
I know the cover.
Radiohead.
I can't
and I was
get
like,
it.
No, it's not. It's the green one, and he's like it's got the swamp sort of vibe to it.
It's called In Limbs.
I fucking love that album.
No.
Is it in? Yeah. Is it called?
It's as you can see, I'm not like a massive fan. I think OK Computer's amazing.
Yeah, OK Computer's sick. Did you have any like artists that you go and see live where you sort of thought to yourself, this is what I want to do? I want to be in a band.
Yeah, definitely. But I had it sort of when I was 9 years old. So I grew up at that time quite poor. I always make a joke. I can't wait to tell my daughter, but it's true. Like my feet had grown out of my school shoes, and my dad used to paint them black with boot polish so that they blended in to go to school. And we didn't have a TV, certainly didn't have a video player or anything like that. And my granddad got a new system. It was right before the Christmas holidays, and I was 9 years old. And I still remember getting it. So we got his hand-me-down with a TV and a VHS player. And my dad set up the cassette player into the TV, and the whole stereo came through it. It was ripping. And I was 9 years old. This is 1992. And I came home from school, and we got to go to the video store sort of for the first time. So I was so excited. And I got Batman Returns, which was a new release out. Like, I'll never forget it. And, watched that on Friday night. Like, most kids are used to having this at this age, not me. And so it's such a big deal. And then on Saturday morning, I couldn't wait to wake up and watch all the cartoons, same as everyone else got to do, like Turtles or whatever. But uh,
Yeah.
Saturday Disney was what was big, I guess, at the time, like gummy bears and stuff. So I woke up real early, so excited, before anyone ran down to the lounge and turned on the TV, and Rage came on. And I'd never even heard secular music. I grew up in a very strict Christian home, and I mean, 1992 to turn on Rage. I mean, we're talking. I mean, Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of was in the charts. You know, Radiohead, Creep, Faith No More, Easy, Cats in the Cradle by a band called Ugly Kid Joe. I still.
Yeah, and it would have had the VHS.
Yeah, Blind
20 minutes
Melon, No
dedicated
Rain.
as well.
All of this just in one go. And I told my dad came out and sat and watched it with me eventually, and I was just obsessed from that moment on. East 17, a band I loved, Peter Andre, who I loved. But I was 9. You know, Give Me a Little Sign Girl was brand new on the charts. Too Unlimited, No Limit. You know, it was terrible music, I guess, but to me, I'd never seen anything like it. Like I was absolutely obsessed. And so I told my dad loved it, that I loved music instantly. And so he set up the cassette player so I could record the music onto a cassette and then listen to it throughout the day. And from that moment on, I was 9 when I decided I'm going to do this. Like, that's what I'm going to do, you know. And then my first CD was Silverchair Frog Stomp. I was 12 years old, had just turned 12. And I went to buy the Tomorrow single, but it wasn't in stock, but the album was. And my dad was like, if you shovel these river rocks at home, we'll come back and buy the album. So I shoveled these river rocks, which is a lot harder than, probably what you think, for 2 days. And then I went and got Frog Stomp. And then that was it. As soon as I heard Silverchair, that was like it. Like I was starting bands, didn't even know how to play an instrument. And to me, that's all I was ever going to do, you know.
Yeah. It's such a good one with skating as well, because it sort of ties into the skating world. Especially, I don't know what it would have been like then, but like, fuck me, I'd have my headphones in and I'd just have like all these songs that I would have watched on skate videos that I'd seen where I'd love the part, and then I'd rip the song and I'd probably just put it on. I'd just put it on my headphones and just skate around, just almost feeling like I was them when I was skating. And the music was just like basically even more of a big part to skating to me than it was like.
Totally. It became my identity. Like as in. Not so much Silverchair, not so much Pumpkin, which I bought from Target for $34, but I bought it because it's a double album. That was a lot for a 12-year-old back then. And but it wasn't until I was 14 when Blink released Damn It and Dude Ranch that I really sort of, okay, this is my music. Yeah, my first concert I ever went to was MXPX on the Life in General tour. And I was 13 there, so that was pre-Dude Ranch. But again, it was pop punk, punk rock. It was that drum beat that just mirrored my heart and how fast my heart beats. And I was obsessed from then on. It was like Lagwagon, Unwritten Law, you know, who personally, I guess, as individuals I can't stand, but you know, Oz Factor and Self-Titled, I was obsessed. Millencolin, I still listen to a lot. Lagwagon, I still listen to a lot. Propaganda, I still listen to a lot. Good Riddance, Strung Out, I still listen to the same shit, you know. And it was all really that time frame where that's what I listened to. That's who I knew who I was. And, you know, a lot of these bands were nothing like Nirvana, because Nirvana to me was like heroin and drugs and killing yourself. And, you know, these bands were like having a good time. There was no real drugness to it. It certainly wasn't drugged out. And I really identified with that because I didn't do those things, you know. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it would have been a weird one when that becomes like a pop culture thing as well, Nirvana, like the shift from hair metal and like all those like feel good songs straight into just like, well, to me, I was going to say,
but see, like,
no, I was just going to say, like, to me, my generation's Nirvana was Blink-182. I mean, everyone learnt the intro to Damn It to play guitar. Everyone could play it. It was one of the only things people could play. After they existed, and like these are three dudes from their garage. It's not like it's manufactured in any way or that they're professional musicians. They became and
it's genuine.
They changed pop culture so much, like to the point where nu metal could barely survive. Pop music could barely survive. Boy bands could barely survive. They just took over. And then from there, they opened the door to, even more so to Fat Records, Epitaph. That's why I do what I do today with like the label and everything, because that's what punk bands did back then. You passed it on. You worked out the best way that you could do it, and then passed it on to others. I felt that came from punk rock. So, to me, Blink-182, in fact, booted down the doors so much that, My Chem, who just have a new song out, they only exist because of Blink. Fall Out Boy only exists because of Blink. In that mainstream world, Good Charlotte, it literally all happened. And wait for it, I don't even know if it's recovered. Sum 41. At least after the grunge thing, there was other stuff. But really, since pop punk totally infiltrated the mainstream, or punk rock, I don't like the term pop punk really, but punk rock, tell me a new genre that's really been invented or had such an impact.
That's what I was going to ask you next, to be honest. I was going to think, like, I reckon outside of bands, there's probably electronic music. Hip-hop is, like, obviously, like, mumble rap's massive at the moment. Like, that's pretty much a mainstream thing. But can you think of any genres that anything that you've heard recently that's sort of blown your mind to the point where you think, fuck, I haven't heard something like that before, that might take over the pop
I don't think anything
culture,
will take
like
over it in the same way, because I think like that world is finished. As in, like, I don't believe that now you can come up from the garage as just yourself with your mates and change the world in that way. Because it's so sewn up, right? Like, as in, there's so many subgenres, there's so many record labels, everything is sort of divided up. For instance, like, and when it comes to mumble rap, the reason why it's so big and so popular is because it's the same way that Blink was so big and so popular, in the way of it's simple, you believe you can do it. So, for example, like right now, if my child wants to learn an instrument, she does, but let's just pretend she wants to. She plays piano because she has to. It's like a rule in my house. But I tell her it's like math. You just have to learn it. There's no. We'll get through that. But like, right, like let's say you have a teenage child, and they want to learn an instrument. And their parent's not a musician or whatever. So what you'd do, though, you'd go and buy them a computer. There's no way you'd go and buy them a vintage instrument that they actually have to play. So that's why mumble rap's so big. Also, because like you got people like, and I don't know if DaBaby is really mumble rap, but right, he's independent. I don't mind that song Surge, but everything else pretty rubbish. But like, he puts it out himself. He's independent. He has billion streams, and he records it himself on a computer. So again, as long as it's possible, and very controversial, as long as it's coming back to being possible for you to do on your own, that's what's always going to change the needle or move the needle, right? Because and that changed, I guess, with people like Elvis, right back in the day. Like let's skip way further back. So other incredible artists, it's so crazy, that like Beethoven or something, right? No one was influenced to do that because they couldn't. Like Mozart, again, you couldn't. Like you had to be trained. You had to have studied it your whole life and go to a higher education and be brought up inside a scene where that happens. So, that style is never really going to happen again, or it's not going to change the world in that way. Right now, the only thing that changes the world is the most simplest version of anything that you can do yourself. And I mean, to the point where, if you really want to take it, that far, is, TikTok is basically destroying Hollywood.
Definitely. It's destroying music as well. Not destroying it, but it's taken a new route in terms of like how artists can blow up. Like you can have a random snippet of a song that goes for 20 seconds and release a 3.5 minute song, and people are going to know that 20 seconds of the song, and they're never going to listen to the full thing. And it's all over Fortnite. There's like dancers on Fortnite, and they like peel them off there from that, and it's like, and you hear these things over and over again, and then you don't hear the whole song. But like artists blow up. Like there's so many different avenues as well now. Doesn't have to be around go to the release your music through whatever, and then it goes out into the stores, blah blah blah. There's like constantly going to be new innovations that pop up that change the way people blow up as artists, even to the way that how people listen to music.
I think that's the difference of what's going to change, like the medium itself, as in and how you access it. But none of that's important to me, I couldn't care less about, being the next Post Malone, or who's going to be the next Post Malone. And if you do it via Twitch, good on Post Malone, but am I care about that? No, I didn't grow up with any expectations of being Post Malone, or being, rich and famous and changing genres of music. And that's like, really, that again is the heart and soul of Soho, as in like it's the idea that, you can do anything that you want and truly be yourself, and people will connect with it. How many people? It's not important. If you want to be that, then go be that, and you'll get it. But that's not what we promote as a band, and it's also not something that we promote at the label. Part of the whole reason why doing the label is, to encourage people, to find the meaning in what they do, not comparing it to others. Doing it for yourself. And I'm very proud of that, actually. That I believe my band can't be bought or sold, because it's not of any interest to us. And when you discover that, there's almost a power that comes with it, where
it'd be an empowering feeling. You're not
exactly. And that's sort of like why without the label, of course, music is the first and foremost thing it takes for me to want to work with a band. But the idea is to transfer that, empowerment, to be reassured, because at the end of your career, not that there's going to necessarily be one, but like what I mean is, when it's all said and done, right? In my experience, that's all I can say, is it didn't make a difference whether there was 200 people, 20 people, my friends and family, or 200 people, 2,000 people, or 20,000 people. It didn't make a difference to how we felt or what we were doing. And, if you think you need any of that, it's not going to be a fun trip on the way back down. If you do get to experience any of that. So to me, it's very much about, finding the why of why you do what you do, and then making sure that we pay utmost respect to that why, and ensure that it's always at the forefront of our minds. So, and if you do anything different, that to me is selling out. So, to me, the easiest way to explain it is, I play music, and everything I do is to honor that little kid that was 9 years old, that turned on Rage, and it changed their life, changed their entire perception of the world. Music was my friend. It was my best friend. It gave me a place and to belong. It gave me a sense of empowerment. And so the only person that I believe we're ever playing to is that little kid inside of us that wanted to do this. That's who we have to honor.
Young kids.
And as long as you're honoring that little child in you that or that moment when you knew this is what you wanted to do, that's who we honor. Because as adults, we get stuck in our head. We have pressure. We have ulterior motives. And again, like my life mission is to make sure that people honor the child within.
For sure, dude. And as well, I reckon like with making music, that's kind of like it'd probably change for every single person. But I know making music's probably like one of the most rewarding things you can do when you figure out a song that's really, really sick and that you really, really like. And once you get it down onto like a recorded version, and you listen back to it, and you can listen back to it like hundreds of times over or whatever if you do it 100 times. Like that's like the best thing. But then it's like it just goes, it starts going away, and then you're like, I need to make a new one. And then you're like, fuck, here we go. And it's just like, you're a wheel. You're just like spinning around, just like you make a new song. You're like, ooh, it's sick. But like, that's the driving, I reckon that's a huge driving force for artists. And it probably should be a massive driving force because shows are fun. And I could imagine, but like you were saying, they'd probably come to an end at some point. But
shows are fun, but shows are kind of like the dessert for me. You know, it's kind of like all the reward. It's just nothing but calories, right? And what I mean by that is it's calories for the ego. You know, you go out, you get the feedback, you get all the positivity, and everything's awesome live. Like if you don't enjoy playing like live, you know, chances are you're not going to get along with me because I think like that is your reward. Like playing live is a reward. When it comes to like, the music, I totally agree. And what I like to do is once it's all recorded, when I'm like, all right, is this something? And I've felt it with every record that my band's, you know, released is, you know, before we fully call it, I'm like, okay, that's the album. Like, I put it on and I go for a run. And, you know, if it pumps me up, if I'm starting to have visions of, you know, the next level of life and how that's going to impact people and are they going to feel, you know, is this a positive experience for the world, then I know that we're on kind of thing. And, like, it's worth doing. You know, there's a lot of pollution out there in the world. And so I think, you know, these days we need to be super wary about what we're releasing. And, you know, is it adding to the pile of shit? Or, you know, is it something that people are really going to feel empowered by? It's really tough. I hope that doesn't come across as arrogant, but
no, it's a tough one though, because music's obviously subjective, and it could be anyone. Like you have to always just do it for you. Like at the end of the day, if you think about it as like the broader spectrum of people, that's like no one's ever going to be the same looking at things like the way that you do. So it's like you kind of just have to do it for you and just be like, I can envision it being like something people connect to. If
And in saying that, you know, the first thing we ever released, I expected us to be the biggest band in the world. I was like, well, there you go. It's fucking perfect, and we're awesome. And
yeah. What was that run like when you fucking got the masters to
definitely.
Hungry Ghost and Wake Up?
I mean,
and fucking
before so this happens generally for me before we get to the master, and that's generally how I at least suggest my track listing is based upon a run, you know. But I guess like with Hungry Ghost, it was a bit weird because you got to remember, like, we were still, you know, playing to like a couple thousand people, kind of. You know, like we're doing multiple Northgate socials, multiple zoos, and then when we came across Hungry Ghost and Luke wrote it, and then you know, we were already playing it, we put it together, we recorded it with our mates, but I was like, it was so satisfying because I felt like, I mean, we thought that was the last thing we were going to do. Same with Waco. I don't know if other bands like live on the edge quite to that extent, but As in, like, yeah, this is it. Like, I mean, there's nothing left in the
How
tank.
so? Like you thought you'd split up once you release it?
Yeah, and even as a band, like, if that's the last show that we do.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
like,
thanks. You
that's
can
that's
give
definitely
away.
how
Gotcha.
our band has lived, right? Like, as in, this is the best we possibly have. And I was happy to go out on Hungry Ghost, you know. The fact that it was one part of, 4 or 5 albums in our career is awesome. But if it was the only part or the last part, it wouldn't have made any difference to, how stoked and proud I am to have been a part of it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Can you run me through that period when you were
It's almost
releasing
10
that,
years
like
ago.
the timeline from it, on a vague thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just
I mean,
vaguely.
it felt like the end and the beginning
Yeah,
at the same
is
time.
it
We
possible?
had toured a lot. I think we'd just come back from America where we had done 210 shows in like 10 months. I was in my first year of marriage with my wife. So it's really hard to put it all into perspective or understand what was happening. But we were on the charts in America on self-titled, not in Australia, and we're on tour with like bands like 30 Seconds to Mars, not our heroes, but Built to Spill and Dinosaur Jr., our heroes. Like we had just played Lollapalooza. We're playing with bands like Against Me. Everything just seemed awesome, apart from in Australia. And we made this decision. We were mid-tour with 30 Seconds to Mars. We're on like this epic tour, and they had the MTV Awards coming up, and Jared Leto needed to stop the tour to go and do like this 5-day cleanse. So he looked as beautiful as what he does for the awards show. And it led to us just being like, well, fuck this. Like, we're not going to sit around and wait to get back on this tour. We were at the end of our tether, easiest way to explain it. And so we went home because to us, it was no good being popular in a country that we didn't really care about. We were in the machine, man. Like, trust me, there is no music machine in Australia. I don't care what anyone says. There is no music machine. It is the Wild West out here. And over there, though, for example, we'd go into a radio station where we're like 20th, like 6th most played track on like what's, Triple M or Nova or something, right? And then they'd open a door to a room that was nothing but people on the telephone making calls, and they play your song down the telephone to strangers, which is like old people that are home willing to accept these calls. They then play your track to them, and if they can identify the band name or the song name, or they like the song, that's how you're graded and rewarded. I mean, and that's just the radio, dude. So, and then you're told like, okay, you got to do an acoustic cover of a song, and we're like, well, we don't even have acoustics, and like our label's like, bang, go into Guitar Center in LA and get anything you want, and then get back up there and do the cover. So, and then we're in the van having to quickly find a song, and then we go out on like San Francisco radio that's like, I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, it's on YouTube and shit. But anyway, that's the machine, right? That's the machine. Insane. When you're given interview prep, when you're told what to say and what you can't say, when you like,
Yeah.
absolutely stuff that people do not experience. We experience this. And then, so we were like, well, fuck this. We're not going to do this anyway. We're never going to survive doing this. We're on tour with a band called Sick Puppies, who were from Australia. They're really good at it, right? We're not. And so we knew that. So we're like, okay, so we're not going to be professionals. So let's go home, where to us what's at least important is being like Frenzal Rhomb, Grinspoon, Jebediah, our heroes, right? Regurgitator. And we're just going to tour on our own terms when we're ready and put out stuff when we're ready and all of that. So we make our way home. We're on this tour. They go there and we just cancel. We leave. We fly home. That's it. And we got home and it was pretty dire for a while. We actually toured with Jebediah when we had the first song that was ever written for Hungry Ghost. We toured with Jebediah and that song was called Domestic Lala. So it was the first song written for Hungry Ghost. Yeah, didn't end up on the album because we ended up writing like ones that suited the album better. and yeah, so we did that, and our friends back home were just killing it. So DZ, Death Raiders, who we were friends with, we grew up playing with, they were just killing it. And they had signed to this new startup label who had also put out Bleeding Knees Club, and they were called IOU. So when we came home, we had Hungry Ghost. Boredom had pretty much written Hungry Ghost. We were jamming it and playing it. And Tinderbox and Neighbor Neighbor were also on Hungry Ghost. But IOU didn't want to put out a record by us because Self-Titled had done so bad. And Mushroom had actually just pretty much dropped us. But then they signed IOU. So, and IOU's first signing was us. So imagine being Johan. He's trying to sign the band that the bigger label had just dropped.
Yeah,
and
that would have been a pretty hard one to preach.
Exactly, and grateful to Yowie for giving us a go. And he couldn't. He was like, well, I can't put out an album, or I'm not going to put out an album. I'll put out a 7-inch. I'm like, okay. So he's like, I'll choose 2 tracks and we'll go with that. And he chose Tinderbox and Ceremona Said. And we were like, you can't have Ceremona Said. Like, that's for the album. So I think he chose Tinderbox and Neighbor Neighbor. So they came off Hungry Ghost. And then Boredom wrote Gold Coast and Eightfold to fill the spot for those two. And so Tinderbox and Neighbor Neighbor came out, and they went really well for us. Still weren't in the hottest 100 level, nor did we ever expect to be. But I think they were in like the 151, 152, the first year of the hottest 200. So that happened, and then DZ had convinced him to take us on, and our manager at the time. Yep. And then that went well enough that he decided to put out Hungry Ghost, which Hungry Ghost, so check this out, Self-Titled was like a $300,000 record, right? And it sold like 3,000 copies in Australia at the time. It actually went on to do more after Hungry Ghost, but let's just say that. So $300,000, 3,000 copies. Hungry Ghost was recorded for $17,000 with our mate. And I mean, it's sold over 75,000 at least. I mean, we don't even keep count anymore. But I know that's platinum. Yeah. So
that's crazy. Especially in this era, like it's like
it actually is.
That's like an adjust to inflation thing.
Because CDs were over when that came out, and Covered in Chrome is like multi-platinum and all that sort of happened, and then away we went, and we were so ready to go. We were just the perfect storm because we had been a band for so long. We'd had this incredible upbringing. Through all of our heroes, like we were managed by Dean Turner of Magic Dirt, and we had toured with Jebediah. We had our heroes really acknowledge us, like Tim Rogers, Phil Jamison, and Grinspoon, and so. But none of this had happened. So when that happened, man, we were a sitting duck. We were already playing to 1,000, 2,000 people that under the radar that no one knew. So I will never forget walking out to play Falls. We only had out Tinderbox and Neighbor Neighbor. We're playing Falls 2 hours earlier than what we had played it the year before or 2 years before. And so we're like, it's nice for them to like let us on, and that's great. And this is when Chet Faker's massive, right? And I don't know who else, but that's the sort of music that was big at the time. So again, we're still incredibly unfashionable playing our instruments. And, man, the tent is so full. It's outside the tent, and from the get-go, every single person sung every single word. And, like, you could probably find photos of that show online. But that was quite literally the moment where I was like, holy shit, we're going to be big. And then that was still pre-Covered in Chrome coming out, and then Covered in Chrome came out, and like a lot of people probably don't realize this, but when it comes to like
Fucking
radio
hell.
play, and thank you so much to Triple J for like all the support, because it really took us, from here to there. But what a lot of bands don't realize is we had done all that already on our own, and Covered in Chrome never got a full ad to Triple J rotation. It had spot rotation for sure, but our first ad on Triple J, as in full rotation, was Ceremona Said, based upon the success of Covered in Chrome. And, Covered in Chrome came in at like, I don't even know what it is, to be honest, but I think it was like 14, maybe 13 in the Hottest 100. And that was absolutely insane for a band like us.
That's insane.
Yeah. We were on our way to the airport. We're at our manager's house. And once it went into the 20, we were like, well, we're definitely not in, man. We got to go. We got this plane to catch. And we kept waiting around. And just before we got in the car, it came on. We had totally given up hope, obviously, at 20 for a song, in the peak of, Chet Faker and Vance Joy, I guess, and, stuff like that. I mean, it was incredibly unfashionable music to be playing. And like,
Yeah.
And then that was like the real beginning of like, we went to playing to 1,000 people to like every single show sold out. We just put on shows, sold out, add another one, sold out, add another one, sold out. It was crazy time. At the time, I guess, it was crazy.
Yeah. You would have just been beside yourself. It would have been such an adjustment. What was life like as it shifted? Was it kind of, did you have any like best and worst moments, like where you sort of weren't ready for something?
I think so. I think like we're pretty fluid as a band. I think that we really,
or were you just sort of savoring every moment?
And, put each other first, and we put fandom first. And what I mean by that is not people into us, but we're such fans of music that we pay the utmost respect to the fan experience and what you want your band to be. And I think that we've always sort of put that first, and so we were always just ready to go because we were in the bonus round, right? Like most bands were out and we were just like killing it at the time. And it was like, mate, we're in the bonus round. So to us, it was just like, keep hit and go. Like, let's go. Dollar bets all round on the feature. Like, it just didn't even matter. Nothing mattered. We were in the perfect moment. And so all we made sure we did was is give as much attention to our friends' bands as possible and, try and lift up the whole scene as it was happening. Like all of our supports were handpicked. We've never played a show that it's not handpicked. And, again, like, it's not big up us. It's more like, we just got to do what we thought was right.
Yeah, that's sick. Dude, we drove past, I don't know if Waco, the album, is titled after that, the massacre that happened in the States. We drove past it, dude. We went past that particular house when we were in America. And then as I was driving past it, I had a revelation. I was like, what the fuck? Is this what the thing's named after? And then we saw like all the, like just people walking around in there with the, it was fucking crazy. But that particular album, I remember when it came out, I was like, this is it. Like this was like that opening track, like, like that one just got me. And I used to have this old panel van, and and I had a sub in the back, and I had these like blown out speakers in the side, and I'd be driving home from work, and I was like, Waco's out, here we go, put it on, and the sub was up, and it was like, that one, I was like, shh, and fucking we were slamming it around.
Oh, that's epic. That was like, well, like with that, like we just wanted to make sure that we were never that band that got softer. Like Waco's way heavier and way darker than Hungry Ghost. And so we really pushed it just straight up. We're like, opening track's going to be the heaviest we've ever been. And the back half of How to Taste, which is I think the song you're talking about, I mean, it throws down. And again, we're trying to be like Boxcar Racer at the time, but heavier. And then, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to Waco, I guess like all of our music is heavily religiously themed. Growing up, we grew up in Hillsong, and that's why self-titled has the crown of thorns on the child's head. And that's like, loosely, I'm going to abbreviate, but like that's the weight of religion being put on a child and being told to live with it. And like the opening song is called Here Be Dragons, sets the tone straight away. Hungry Ghost is, again, about the starvation of the spirit while you fill yourself with, chrome and gold, when you're actually praising the devil. And you say, hell, fuck yeah, they do. And so,
True.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's like OK Cathedral. It's all very heavily religious themed, and just the gravity of that. And then Waco is, how to taste is being told like what you think, like how you taste. Tell me what to think. Tell me how to taste. Exactly. King of the Viceroy, same thing. You want to be the king or the Viceroy? And then like Waco itself is about how heavy religion can be, and how much you can really follow it through without really understanding what you're doing, I guess. And people took their own lives following a religious point of view and a leader. So it actually can be quite scary, and if you don't look at your surroundings. And then so we actually have quite a serious message underneath it all, whether or not people can pick it up. And then our latest album, Everything Is A-OK, I think really is like the end result. It was a great last album to release because we're okay. We made it. We made it through all the shit. And at the end of the day, it depends on what you focus on, and
That's good.
When you focus on the right stuff, chances are everything is actually okay.
For sure, dude. And you got to figure out where your morals lie. Like if you're gonna be like chasing superficial things, it's always gonna end up being a shit, like meaningless kind of experience. But like we said before with music, it's like if the music really connects with you and you're feeling really good when you're making it, you pretty much can't go wrong. Someone else is gonna fucking feel the same thing that you felt, and like it's so sick, dude. Yeah, like that you can sort of sit back and look at like how many people you've affected. Because I'm sure when you guys
we never even have to worry about, a band's always like, put your phones in a bag or don't film the set. Like, man, we have never had that problem, because if you get your phone out at our show, like, you've lost it. Like the crowd just goes berserk. Like, so you lose your phone, and so no one's trying to get their phone out unless they're up the bag.
Missed the whole point.
But yeah, I mean, I want to say I hate ever, identifying personally as anything with Violent Soho, but it's bizarre. It's bizarre. I don't identify with being in Violent Soho, truth be told, at all. I'm often taken back. I mean, it's just at the pub. Sorry, not the pub. I just went and grabbed a 6-pack, and the dude was like, hit me up and stuff. But, he had the chats on, and this lady was talking about it, and I was like, well, it's crazy. Like, this old duck likes the chats, and she's like, I love this song, and then she's like, I went and saw Courtney Barnett, and I'm like, whoa, this is sick. Like, I don't live in an area that's like that. So I was like, that's sick. And then I got the beers, and he's like, hey, and then went up, and he's like, dude, and but I'm always tripped out because I'm such a music fan that I'm just like, oh, it's so rad she knows the chats. It's so rad knows Courtney Barnett. And it's like, oh, that's right. I play in a band too. That's crazy. So, I really, and I think like we've done really well at, supporting the scene, I think, and like not supporting the scene, but, helping do the best that we can without, living in it and deluding ourselves that we're any different to anyone else, if that makes sense.
For sure, dude. You're like the most humble guy. I've never remember when our first time we spoke to you, we were like fucking. I was freaking out. I'm not gonna lie. Like I remember getting on the phone going like, nah, this is happening. And I had I had like a glass of wine there, and I was like, just settle the
Oh,
fuck down, buddy.
dude.
Like relax a bit. And then you get on, and then you were just like, pretty much, you were going like, you loved our band. I'm like, you love our band, and you were just like, nothing revolves around you. And I feel fucking bad because I've sort of made you like sit down and do the Tidswell story, but like people that I
No.
know and would probably, if there's anyone that even listens to our podcast,
It's only hard because I don't,
really interesting. So
like, I'm
so like,
experiencing the
it's probably
memories
hard
as
for
I
you to
say
probably
them.
sit down
Like,
and go
I
over
don't
these things
actually
and
sit
talk
around
about
and think
yourself
about this
but-
stuff. I would hate for anyone to ever think that I think anything that I'm saying is right or real or that I lived this. I don't. I truly am incredibly grateful. I take none of it for granted. And us as a band, again, like that's the soul of the band is, so I only find it hard and I only get awkward when I talk about it because I want to make sure that, we don't rest on our laurels. We don't think that we're anything special. But to me, it's exciting to share the story of what we went through, I guess, because the entire point of Soho is to encourage and inspire everyone to be themselves unashamedly and know that you can do whatever you want. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, we've done a really good job of that. Like that was one of those feelings that you have when I remember I went and saw you at the Hi-Fi, and that was it sounds kind of stupid, but I reckon that's like the essence of a good show is when you sort of like forget that you're like about everything else at the time, and you just amongst all these other people that have the same connection to the music that you guys have made, and then everyone's feeling it at that particular time, and everyone's like not even considering being insecure or like where they're being like upset.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And like
in the moment,
that comes from like
that's pretty much what your shows
never
do
taking
them,
your shot for granted, right? Like no matter what show, if you're playing to 20 people, 6 people, 20 people, your friends and family, whatever it is, it's not taking that moment for granted. This is it. So give everything you can so that everyone in the room feels what you're feeling, regardless of how many people it is. And again, I do have a lot of pride that I think that, if you've seen us with 10 people, I bet you it's the exact same as like headlining, playing like something like Splendor in the Grass or something.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, on that
no
note,
worries, Benny. Absolute pleasure. As again, thanks for coming on to massive fan of Divers.
We appreciate
Heard
you
through Tuna Tuesday, and it's an honor to have you on the label. I think you're one of the most exciting upcoming bands in the country. Certainly one of my favorites, and thank you for everything that you do and contributing music to the community that we believe in and love. Love you too, man. Take it easy.
Right.
See ya.
Likewise, man. All the best, bro. Fucking love you, dude. Have a good one. You too. See ya.